Preview season is coming to a close here on Armchair Analysis, and today we're talking all about the Oregon Ducks. What can the Ducks be in 2025? How can they replace all the talent and production that went out the door after the 2024 season? We'll cover all that and more here on the channel. Make sure you stick around. Again, it's Armchair Analysis, August 7th, 2025. And again, we only got three more of these, including today. We have Notre Dame and Ohio State, and then we are done after Saturday. And we're on the conference previews, where we talk about everything, including the group of five. I'm excited for that. This is a team that last year was Big Ten champs in year one. They made the college football playoff, and they had a disappointing run there. We'll explain all that here in a minute, but first I want to say thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for making this preview season so successful and so fun for me. Between the comments and the back and forth, whether it is troll comments or legitimate thoughts and concerns about different teams, I really enjoyed hearing a lot of other perspectives, and it's really fun. That's what makes growing this as a community so fun. We're not doing this because, really, we're not doing this as a get big scheme. This is us trying to really grow a true community of college football fans who just love the sport the same way I do, and that's what we're here for. That's what it's about, and I hope you all will stick around. And if you're new around here, you leave a like, subscribe specifically. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers by the time we hit the month, or by the time we hit week 0, which is August 23rd. Help us get there. I think we can certainly make it happen. We got previews all throughout, whether that is Heisman predictions, conference previews, the rest of the preview season if you haven't seen that already, or we get into college football playoff predictions, week 0 predictions and previews, and we have a bunch of content. We're going to have basically 7 days of content every single week from week 0 through the college football season. I'm really excited for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, I really hope you guys will stick around and join me on this journey through the 2025 season. So with all that said, let's go ahead and talk about Oregon this year. This is a team, again, that went 13-1 last year. They were 9-0 in Big Ten play, won the Big Ten, of course. And this was a team that really did everything the way you would expect them to. Dillon Gabriel was as advertised. This team really played to their potential every week outside of their college football playoff matchup against Ohio State, which was probably, not probably, it was the worst that Oregon looked all year. They're looking to kind of replicate last year's successes and make this a perennial playoff team, and I think they can certainly start to do that with the way this year looks. They have a pretty workable schedule, of course, especially in non-conference play, but they also have a workable Big Ten schedule that has a couple hiccup spots that they could certainly lose in, but they're going to be favored in probably 12 out of 13 games this year, or 11 out of 12 games, sorry. This is a team that certainly has it cut out for them, and they certainly know what the question marks are going into this year. We'll kind of explain that here as we go. This team averaged 34.9 points per game last year. That's 17th in the sport. They allowed 19.4 points per game. That was 16th. Turnover margin was plus 0.4 per game. That was 35th in college football. They had a 5th-ranked recruiting class and the number 5 ranked portal class with 11 commitments brought in. They brought in some really big players at different positions. They brought in Mekhi Hughes at running back. We'll talk a little bit more about what we expect from him. Dylan Thieneman comes in, who they're really excited about. They even bring in Bear Alexander, who's on his 3rd stop, and they're really excited to see maybe if he can kind of live up to the potential that he had when he came into Georgia. You look at the coaching staff, though. It's Dan Lanning back once again. Will Stein returns, and then, of course, Tosh Luboy as a defensive coordinator. They're really excited for what they think that Will Stein can create with Dante Moore, who's going to be the starting quarterback this year. Dante Moore has had a interesting career, even throughout high school. He was originally a favorite to commit between Michigan and Oregon, and then he ultimately ends up going to UCLA. Went to UCLA or ended up at UCLA for a couple years. Started for a little bit there. Things didn't really work out. He transfers to Oregon last year in the portal cycle. And when he does that, he makes his way there behind Dillon Gabriel, knowing he's going to be behind Dillon Gabriel, but going to get a year of time to really fit into the system and work. Now, year 2 for guys in this Will Stein system, Bo Nix is the one I'm really talking about. Year 2 ends up being the year for these guys. Dante Moore was not a starter last year, but this is year 2 for him in this system. I expect that he is not going to have the struggles that people may expect. There are certainly going to be hiccup points. But again, when you have a schedule that is as workable as they have, and the talent that's on this roster that you have, you certainly can really afford to make a few mistakes or have a couple down games at the quarterback position and still be able to start 4-0. That's how many games they have before they go to Happy Valley and play Penn State. That's where the question marks certainly come into play. This team at running back, again, it's Noah Whittington, but Mekhi Hughes is going to be the starter. He's transferring in from Tulane. Of course, everybody has kind of seen the production that he's put together down there in New Orleans, and he's going to bring that out to Oregon, and I don't see it changing. He is a dynamic running back who can really create the big play and is going to be a lot of fun to watch in this Will Stein system because they haven't really had a running back as good as Mekhi Hughes. They've had good running backs, but they haven't had this good of a running back in this system. It makes me really excited to see how they can kind of pair this run game and even utilize Dante Moore's running ability at times along with Mekhi Hughes in the backfield. Again, Noah Whittington's going to be a fun spell running back as well in that offense. At wide receiver, you got one of 2 returning starters, and that's Evan Stewart is returning from last year's roster. Everybody's excited about what he's going to be able to bring yet again, the experience that he brings in. But they're excited about another guy, and that's DeCorian Moore, true freshman coming out of high school. He is going to be on the field a lot this year, and he's certainly going to probably start from the beginning. He is a dynamic playmaker, at least that is everything that we've heard so far. He is as advertised from what we've heard so far, which makes you really excited if you're an Oregon fan and what that wide receiver room can look like this year. This is a team that certainly has potential, but they also have Kyler Casper, Malik Benson. That's they're 4 deep right now. But again, those top 2, I think, are going to be the guys to watch here on this offense. You look at Kenyon Sadiq, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch too. The tight end, he has the potential to be a true playmaker and really create some havoc for defenses, especially when they start focusing a little too much on Evan Stewart and DeCorian Moore. Watch out for Kenyon Sadiq. He might be one of the most underrated tight ends in college football. Now, granted, I had him in my top 10 in my tight end rankings earlier this summer, but he is a guy that I think a lot of people have overlooked. He's going to be one that maybe surprises some people. This offensive line has 1 returning starter. They graded really well last year, and I expect similar. I think that's one thing we can trust with Dan Lanning's teams is just real stout on the line of scrimmage. They made the decisions and moves to improve what they lost, or not improve what they lost, but try to replace what they lost. We'll see how the offensive line looks, but I really do have a lot of faith. It's hard to just say, okay, these are the names and the names look good, because we saw LSU last year was an offensive line that had a lot of names and a lot of draft pick and draft talent, but they struggled. They couldn't get the run game going because the offensive line didn't work well together. So when we look at an offensive line, we have to just see them on the field. Oregon's one of those teams that I just trust that Dan Lanning and this coaching staff will have an offensive line ready to go and playing really good football as a unit. Move on to the defense. They have 4 returning starters on that side of the ball. They gave up 5 yards per play last year, which is 26th in college football. Brought in transfers Bear Alexander from USC, Dylan Thieneman comes over from Purdue, and Theron Johnson comes over from Northwestern at cornerback. They're excited for all 3 of them, and they bring in all 3 from Big Ten opponents, which is certainly helpful when you kind of take away guys from different opponents and bring them in. But they're most excited, of course, for Dylan Thieneman and what he can bring to that secondary. He's a playmaker, a ball-hawking safety coming over from Purdue. They are very excited to see what he can do. And from all accounts, he is a leader in the locker room, and he is a guy who is certainly going to really hold that secondary to a higher standard, which is a really solid sign going into this 2025 season. As for guys coming back, you got Bryce Betcher leads the team in returning tackles with 94. And that's Mateo Uyunglele coming back, who leads really every other category. Tackles for loss, he had 13 last year. 10.5 sacks, he leads that category as well. 2 forced fumbles, leads that category. Had multiple players with 1 interception. This is a team that had 23 total turnover opportunities, 12 interceptions, 11 forced fumbles. They're looking to be a little more opportunistic, create those opportunities, certainly. But realistically, it's just continuing to make the plays, and I think they bring in the guys that can certainly do that. And I talked about Dylan Thieneman, but do not doubt Theron Johnson That's a guy that I think is going to be kind of one of the more underrated transfer acquisitions in the secondary of any team in college football. We look at names to watch on this team. For me, it is DeCorian Moore. How quickly can he step up and be the playmaker that everybody expects him to be? Does he come out and do it in week 1? Or better yet, does he come out and do that in week 5 against Penn State? If you come out and you see him make this huge stamp on that game in Happy Valley, that certainly answers or kind of answers our questions about who wide receiver 2 is. But even more so, it just adds another level to this offense. If he can't get it figured out, or if he does not end up being as good as advertised throughout the course of the season, I don't really see that happening. I just don't feel like that's going to happen. But should that be the case, it certainly does make you question how good this offense can be. I mean, if it could be the difference between being over 30 points per game and below. I don't know if this offense is like explosive or competitive or best offense we've ever seen, but they are good enough to get the job done, especially if Dante Moore takes care of the football. And again, you get some wide receivers who produce a little bit here. It's not just Evan Stewart. Defensively, I was talking about Dylan Thieneman, and it's really, again, it's just his leadership. That's the biggest thing, and why he's a name to watch for me, is just the leadership that he brings to the table. He stays healthy, stays on the field, and even if he doesn't stay healthy, we don't want that. But should he not stay healthy, the leadership he even brings on the sideline, and he's going to be there every week, cheering his teammates on, helping them out. He's like an extra coach on the field. That's a huge addition for this Oregon secondary. As for this team's schedule, I mentioned before, and I'm going to mention again, it's certainly workable. They have some games they can win, a lot of games they can win. They have some games that can be lost. I look at Penn State on September 27th. I look at Indiana, which is a home game on October 11th, but that's after a bye week. I think that game is going to be a little bit more in Oregon's favor. But then I also look at Minnesota, USC, Wisconsin, and even that Iowa game before that. A road trip to Iowa, road trip to Washington. I said Wisconsin, a road trip to Washington. You look at those 4 games, and there is certainly potential for them to drop one of those as well. I mean, Iowa looks good. Mark Gronowski, saw some practice footage of him the other day. He looks really solid. I'm excited to see what he does for the Iowa offense. Minnesota is going to have one of the best rushing attacks in the Big Ten. What can they do with those 2 running backs, and how can they kind of disrupt the ball game or affect the defense? That game's going to be a Friday night game in Eugene, though. That's a little bit tougher to win on Friday night in Autzen Stadium. They'll host USC on November 22nd. That's going to be a game that, okay, USC, we don't know what they'll be, but Jade Maava will at least have more than a handful of games started at that point that he could certainly produce something. And then you have Washington, who I'm just really loving DeMond Williams. I'm really starting to just love this team more and more the more I look at them. I need the defense to be a little better. They've addressed that, of course, with Ryan Walters as the defensive coordinator. Washington's a team I'm really looking for as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this schedule real quick. As I'm pulling this up on the screen, you take a look here, and you see that this team has some definitely workable games. The Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State, that start to the season is certainly more than forgiving. You have Rutgers and Wisconsin, who are going to be, I think down this year. Rutgers is tougher than Wisconsin personally, but 2 games that are certainly going to be on a similar level. And then really it just comes down to those final 4: Iowa, Minnesota, USC, Washington. As I mentioned earlier, you have that Penn State road game. We'll see. Could they drop more than 1, more than 2? I mean, anything would be a regression from last year by a record standpoint. But it's a little bit tougher of a schedule, I think, in some regards too, in terms of some of the teams they play just being better. So let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. And they're going to get the win opening the season against Montana State. They're going to win over Oklahoma State as well. I think they'll start 2-0, make it 3. They'll get a win at Northwestern, and they'll beat Oregon State. I'm gonna say 4-0. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time because it ain't really worth it. They are going to be 4-0 when they start the year, and then when they go into Happy Valley to face Penn State. That's whiteout. With that being whiteout, and I've explained this before, I think that the home team was going to win this game no matter what. Penn State having whiteout that night, I think it's going to make it even better. How many times can I say whiteout in one sitting? I think we just found out. Moving on, they'll take a bye week and then they'll come back and face Indiana. I think the bye week's the best thing for them because they'll be able to get the win. Move up to 5-1. They'll beat Rutgers and Wisconsin. I'm not going to spend too much time on those two games. I just think they're better. There's not really a lot to question there. They'll face Iowa after a bye week, and I think that if this game came on November 1st instead of November 8th without that bye week in front, we'd probably talk a little bit differently because it will be a little bit tougher portion of the schedule. But again, that travel over to Kinnick Stadium, that's a tough place to play. Mark Gronowski looks really good. Again, that's just practice, but still, it looks good. I'm gonna take Oregon to get the job done though. At this point in the season, they'll beat Minnesota. That's Friday night at home. Biggest reason for me taking that. Even really the fact that this is at home for Oregon was the biggest reason for me taking them to win. They'll beat USC for a similar reason. Just being at home, I think being the better team, having the better quarterback, ultimately will work them through that game. Closing the year out with a road trip to Washington, and this is certain. I think this is the most likely game they will lose. That's not Penn State. I'm not predicting it. I'm taking Oregon to win, but Washington, I think we really need to take them serious. That's a team that could surprise people, could make a run at the college football playoff. I predicted 9-3 for them. They could certainly make a run at 10. So that's a team that you don't overlook. It won't be overlooked. It's a rivalry game. It's not going to be that type of game for them, but one that we certainly got to keep circled on the calendar. It'll close the year for Oregon at 11-1, 8-1. That's certainly enough to get back to the college football playoff, and certainly enough to kind of prove that they are here to stay and that Dan Lanning is doing exactly what he needs to keep this team in contention. I don't think there was ever really a doubt of that, but it is something that I think that could be questioned. The success and how easy that would be to replicate. They're not going to go 12-0 again. That's the most difficult thing in the world to do in this day and age of college football is to go 12-0, especially in the Big Ten or the SEC. That's just not going to happen. At least it's unlikely. I shouldn't say it's not going to happen, but it's unlikely to happen. But they can certainly do 11-1 and make themselves a contender to go back to Indy and even put themselves in contention for the college football playoff once again. So if you enjoyed this video, or if you got this far, please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what I missed. Let me know what I didn't talk about. If you're an Oregon fan, again, there's a lot of these cases where you guys do know some things on your team better than I do. And I really do want to hear every opinion. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So please, let me know down below what you guys think, what you guys predict for Oregon this year. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Notre Dame. Runners up last year, lost to Ohio State in the national championship, had an incredible season. They're looking to bounce back. Marcus Freeman's looking to have kind of build up for another really solid year. And then we'll follow that up with Ohio State, which has so many changes. No matter how many things stay the same for this team, a lot of changes. We'll talk about whether or not they're able to repeat. That video comes out Saturday, so make sure you stick around. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.